One moment, I'm just going to be sharing my screen with everyone. I hope you can all see. If not, just send through any comments and questions to the webinar admins, and we will very quickly address them. Just a minor technical difficulty for the moment, but should have sorted it out. So today's webinar will be on personalizing compliance training. We're here with Chris Littlewood and Emma Martin, who in a moment will discuss the potential for personalized compliance training. But first, a quick word about Filtered. We're an e-learning company specialized in the use of adapted technologies to accelerate learning and reduce training time. We don't teach you everything, just what you need to know. So check out filtered.com to see our range of courses and to see how we use data to benefit your company. We'll be starting with Chris Littlewood, who is one of the co-founders of Filtered and the developer of Filtered's algorithm. Specifically, he focuses on research and analysis. After Chris has spoken, Emma Martin will join in. Emma Martin delivers courses specializing in city regulation and business law. She began as a barrister before moving into lecturing and research. She teaches Filtered's anti-bribery and corruption course and our money laundering course as well. So now we'll be going with Chris Littlewood, who will be talking about personalizing compliance training. Are you all ready, Chris? I'm just going to pass on to him.
Hello, everybody. I hope everyone can hear me. Please let us know if there are any. And please let us know if there are any issues, and we'll endeavour to sort them out. Hi everyone, I'm broadcasting from Shoreditch on a very hot Thursday afternoon. I hope it's a little bit cooler wherever you are. Shoreditch is a lovely place to work, but it's not the greenest place in the world, and it doesn't exactly soften the heat. So if I pass out, or you can hear me drinking water, sorry. So my name is Chris Littlewood. I lead the science and research team here at Filtered. And the thing that we work hard on here is personalizing our training. So as James said in the introduction, then the thing that we're about is using an algorithm to strip out stuff from our training to try and give people something that's focused on their needs only. So we strip out stuff that they know already, and we strip out stuff that that they don't need for the way that they want to apply the training. What I wanted to do today was to explain a bit what we mean by personalization generally, and make the case for it. So why is it that you should personalize training? What's the benefit of that? And then I want to raise a few questions in particular in relation to compliance. So what might you need to do a little bit differently when it comes to compliance as opposed to general training? So to start with, what I want to do is talk about personalization and why do it at all? What's the point of that? So the first thing to say about personalization is that it isn't new. There are plenty of other online industries who've been doing this for decades. So let's look a little bit at what they do and why it's useful to them, and try and work out why it might be useful to us in training. So here are some well-known examples of training, of personalization, sorry. Amazon, Google, and Newton. So to say a little bit about them, these companies, these giants of online industry, they've used personalization to try and deliver to their users something that is particular to them and therefore more valuable. So to start with the Amazon example, what Amazon are in the business of is tailoring the sort of shop window, the website that I see when I go to Amazon, so that it's appropriate to me. So whether I'm logged in or whether they know who I am through cookies on my machine, then what they want to do is put stuff on that web page which I'm more likely to buy, I'm more likely to browse, I'm more likely to interact with. So their case for personalization is a simple one. It's just the same case for any shop, getting the customer in front of the goods that they're likely to buy. Google, of course, famously employ an algorithm, and their algorithm is about getting the website that people want in front of them. So it's more than just an index. It's taking some search. I might not know exactly what I'm looking for when I come to Google. I put in some search terms that are about specifying my needs, and Google turns those into recommendations, that is websites that it thinks might fulfill those search term needs. And Newton, what they do is that's a step back towards education. So they do personalized learning in their own, with a different approach to us. What they do is personalize for learning style. So they're mainly focused on schools and universities, higher education. And what they're trying to do is give people subject matter questions and tasks and nuggets of training that suit the way that they've learnt in the past, that are at the appropriate level of difficulty and challenge, and so that they learn most effectively. So why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this because these are just examples of industries where there's a really well-established link between personalizing stuff for the user and value. And I think in training we're a bit further behind on this learning curve, but I think the same equation exists, the same equation between getting something that's appropriate to the individual and delivering value. So Amazon, it's a really clear one in terms of sales. Google, it's a really clear one in terms of the success that they've had in drawing people to them to search, and Newton, the success that they've had in convincing mostly higher education institutions to adopt their philosophy and try and optimize the way that they train people. So that's why these industries use personalization. I just want to focus on the Google example to say a little bit about how, because there are things that apply to training from that. So this is a little bit forbidding at first glance, but what we have here is a representation of how Google's algorithm works. So the blobs here, the circles, are websites, and the arrows are the links between those websites. And what this part of Google's algorithm is doing is trying to come up with a rating for quality of each of those websites. So based on nothing but links between websites and the websites themselves, Google's engine is rating them for quality. And quality in this schematic is represented by the size of the blob. So just I think it becomes apparent how this is working just with by looking at a couple of examples of blob size. So looking at the red blob, blob B. So the reason that blob is big, it's a high quality website, is straightforward. It's because there are loads of arrows coming into that blob. You can see there are loads of links linking into it. And what the algorithm is doing is it's conferring quality on that website from the websites that come into it. So that's part of the algorithm. It's links into the website that drive the quality assessment. The other half of the other part of this algorithm is saying is explained a little bit more clearly if you look at the brown blob. Here it's less obvious why this is large, why it has a high quality rating. And the reason is that it has just one link into it, but that link is coming from this very high quality blob itself. So that confers quite a lot of quality onto it. The other important thing to note is this arrow here is the only link out from this high quality website into website C. So all of the quality, if you like, is conferred from the red website onto the brown one. So that makes the brown one high quality by reference. So, okay, so that's how it works. It's links to the sites, the quality of the sites that are linking to your site, and whether those are unique or whether they're sort of diluted through they link to loads of other sites. That's what results in Google's ranking, page rank of website quality. What's that got to do with training? Well, in training, what we don't have are hyperlinks between our training, or elements of training, but what we do have is users who use different pieces of training, and that's what we use. It's what Newton use, and it's what most algorithms which are about ranking quality somehow use. They're using these links. So sorry to put that more clearly. So what they're doing is, or what we can do is to take our users who consume 2 bits of our training and saying they forge the link between those 2 elements of training. So to take an example, if I am successful with one piece of training, and another piece of training, then you can make the inference, maybe rightly or wrongly, that a new user who's good with one of those will be good with the other one too. So it's using my experience and the fact that I did well with 2 bits of training to make a recommendation for another user. And that's exactly what we can do with training. We can use our historic users and their experiences with our content to try and identify what new users are likely to want to learn. So that's sort of the case for that's why I think personalization is valuable generally. Just want to break down why our approach to personalization is valuable. And this slide is showing why we think that. So our approach is to personalize by stripping out material that the individual doesn't need to learn. So what that does is it results in a smaller course, shorter, and it's also more relevant. It includes more relevant information to that user. So if we can do that successfully, that more relevant content is adding more value per hour spent by the learner. So that's one thing. The training's more relevant, and so more valuable. The second point is that because it's more relevant, students are more engaged with the content. So if I'm putting something in front of learners which they know already, then that's quickly going to disengage them. Or if I'm putting stuff in front of them that isn't really relevant for the way that they want to apply the training, then again, that's going to be off-putting. If I can get relevant training in front of them, that's more engaging. So not only is it more valuable when it's studied, but students are more likely to want to study it and to study more. And then the last point, the third reason that we think this approach is more valuable is that time isn't wasted. It's a shorter course, and so the opportunity cost is lower, that training can be consumed more efficiently, and those learners can go off and do more training or something more valuable in their role. Over on the right here is just a screenshot of a little gizmo that we use to estimate the return on investment for our training. So we constructed this to try and say, okay, if you're going to invest time and money in our training, what can you expect by way of return? And the point I really want to make with that is simply why to highlight where that personalization kicks in. So it's in the initial value, the initial added value, which increases, and it's in the reduced opportunity cost. It's the more time available to do something else, or to put it the other way around, there's less time spent on consuming the training. So hopefully I've convinced you that there is a good reason to want to personalize training. Now I want to say just a few words about how we go about that at Filtered. So as I said, what we're aiming to do is to strip back the course to stuff that's useful to the user. And when we're talking about useful, what we mean is that it's new to the user. It's not something that they know well already. And it is valuable to them. So not only is it new, but it's also something that they're going to be able to apply in their role. So our filter is making 2 assessments, and this schematic on this slide is showing the first of those. So what we have along here is a representation of some modules of our training, some course modules. And our filter is ranking them, placing them along this axis here. So over on this side, it's saying there's a high likelihood that this module is new to the user, or to put it the other way around, it's highly likely that the user doesn't already know this module. On the other hand, this module we're assessing is a high likelihood that they know it already. So that's the first stage of our assessment. It's saying how likely is it that it's new. The next stage of our assessment takes those modules and says how much are they needed by the user, how much is the material that's taught in them actually needed in the way that they want to apply the training. And so this second assessment is adding another dimension. And you can see that up here, what we start to be left with is a set of modules which are both new and required for the way they want to apply the training, and those are what's going to form the course. So we don't need to worry too much about the quantification here, but you can turn that into a number, into an overall likelihood that users need to know the training and apply a cutoff. So these modules in the top right-hand corner of the graph, the orange and red ones, those are modules which we think are new and needed, and so that's what's going to form this user's course. So that's the theory behind it. In practice, it looks a little bit like this. So this is an example of one of our course modules. But the thing I want to focus on here is this over on the left-hand side. We've got a little schematic showing the modules of this course. In this case, it is a communication course. But these are the results of the filter for this particular user. So what's happened here is they've answered some questions about themselves, and on the basis of those questions, we've stripped out some of the material and we're presenting them only with the white squares that are shown here highlighted in this little schematic of this 60 module course. And the way, how have we gone about that? Well, what we've done is we've asked them questions about themselves, about the way that they want to apply the training, about the expertise that they need, about how important various tasks associated with this training are to them, how confident they are at those tasks, and some subject matter style questions. And then we've used their answers to those questions to link them with past users. And once we've linked them with past users, we can say, well, here are some users who are similar to you, and we know from the feedback that we've gathered from those users similar to you what was particularly useful to them. So we can make recommendations to you that were appropriate, that were found useful by those users from the past. So it's entirely driven by real user experience. It's driven by what people have in practice found to be useful in the past. So although it's a complicated algorithm, the thing it's doing is really quite straightforward. It's saying who was similar to you who's used this training before, and what did they find useful. Let's give you that. Useful stuff. So this is another schematic to show how that works. So these dots on this plot here are users, and the position that they take on the plot is just based on on their answers to the questions, on the information that we have about the user. So depending on how important relative tasks, certain tasks are to those users. So if project planning in this example is important to the user, they're over on the right-hand side. If it's not important, they're over on the left. If managing project performance is very important, they'll be up here at the top, and if it's less important, they'll be lower down. And so these are composites of questions, and they lead us to position every user on this plot. The colors are just clusters, so we've used a standard clustering algorithm to group together similar clusters from of users. So the colors are linking together a load of similar users. And then when a new user comes along, then we can say, depending on their answers to the questions, where they should sit on this plot, and therefore which group they should be in. And then we use, as I was saying, the recommendations, the feedback from those other users in that group to make recommendations to that new user. So we can give them something that was found to be appropriate in the past, we can give that to this new user. So that's how personalization works generally at Filtered. And this is our courses are in business disciplines that are essential to knowledge workers. So that means ubiquitous software like Microsoft Office, or it means business skills that are essential, such as teamwork, project management, leadership, and those sorts of skills. Compliance training is a little bit special, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to raise some of the ways in which we think compliance is a little bit different, but also to get people's views on that. So what I'd like to do in a moment is ask a question of you. What I'd like to ask is, in which of these ways is, in your view, compliance different from your experience? So what I'd like to do is conduct a little poll in a moment. But before I launch into the poll, I just want to explain very briefly what the question means. So what I'd like to ask is, how does compliance differ from other training? So maybe students with Microsoft Excel, then it's very likely that I only need to know a subset of Microsoft Excel's functionality. I might be only using Excel for data entry, so I don't need to know how to plot graphs. With compliance training, perhaps it's the case in some cases that students need to know everything. Perhaps that's the form that the compliant takes, and they need to know the whole syllabus. Then the next point is about the requirement to demonstrate study. So is it fine that I pass an exam at the end of the compliance training, or do I actually need to demonstrate that I've spent a certain number of hours on the training? Do I need to demonstrate some sort of input rather than simply proficiency? Next point is maybe I need to retake the training if I fail the test. Maybe it's not simply enough to pass a test. Maybe if I fail, I have to take some other actions. Maybe I need to take the same training more than once. Maybe I need to do it every year as a requirement. Finally, maybe I need to take the training or at least take an assessment under some sort of exam conditions. So what I wanted to do to just understand a little bit more about how you use compliance training is ask which of those applied in your experience. So I'm going to ask James if he could open a poll, and hopefully you'll be able to interact with that and give us your feedback. While James is doing that, I should say that so these are things that we've thought about at Filtered. So when we first started thinking about offering compliance training, we thought about these questions and others like them. And is it possible that our approach can be applied to compliance training? And so we think we've got answers to all of these questions. So we think we can cope with a situation when the customer requirement is that everyone knows everything, that there's no reduction in syllabus for an individual. We think we can cope with a requirement where there may be a reduction in syllabus because of what they know already, but that we're still asking everyone to study everything or to get to a level of proficiency with the whole syllabus. So how's that doing poll-wise? So I think James is going to share the poll results in a moment. All right. Okay. Great. Thank you very much, James. Sorry, I'm looking in the wrong place. Okay. So what I can see here is that so lots of people need to demonstrate study. So half of those of you who've responded saying that you need to demonstrate actual hours of training completed. So that's interesting. I think I'd be interested to hear what Emma has to say about the trends in that later on, and whether there is the potential for a move towards sort of assessment-based compliance. And then, yeah, need to complete the same training annually. So half of the respondents have said that. So that's interesting as well. I mean, I think that's one of the things we've heard from customers is that they see our approach as being particularly valuable in compliance for that reason, because it is quite a high volume, quite an onerous volume of training, and that's partly driven, I think, by the requirement that that's completed annually. So yeah, fewer people are saying that they need to know the whole syllabus, which is good, because I think that sort of focused approach that's obviously what we're really about. So only 14% of people in the poll are saying that they need to know the whole syllabus. Okay, I think I've talked for long enough. That was really useful, actually, to get that little bit of feedback from everyone at the end. Thanks for your time, and I'm going to say thanks once again, and then hand over to Emma to talk us through, from her expert standpoint, what she thinks on compliance training today.
Sorry. Hello, everyone. I'm just getting my slides ready. And thank you very much, Chris. That was incredibly interesting. So I'm now going to talk to you in a little bit of detail about compliance training and how compliance training is evolving at the moment, and how it fits really well with the way that Filter's delivering training. So just to start off with, really, I mean, it was very interesting to see the results of that poll, because I do think that two of the main things now are that people need to be doing training that fits their needs. So rather than doing a standardized training exercise, they should be doing training that suits what the purpose that they need it for, so depending on the role that they do within an organization. And I also think that whilst training in some respects needs to be repeated, obviously as you become more proficient and you get to know more about the legal and regulatory obligations, then obviously you need to do sort of less training. So just to start off with, just looking at some of the current trends really on compliance training. I think, as Chris touched on, a lot of training in the compliance field is a legal or regulatory requirement. In fact, it's a large chunk of the compliance budget is spent every year on compliance training. About 24% of the annual compliance budget is spent on training staff. And the main difficulty that firms have really is that they need to demonstrate that all staff have been trained, but now really they need to be able to demonstrate that not only have they been trained, but that the training itself has been effective. I think in the past, I don't know, some of you listening in have had to do e-learning courses for anti-money laundering, where really it's just become a bit of a tick box exercise, and at the end of the e-learning session you answered a couple of questions and that was you done, and it didn't really pick up then on the needs of the individuals in respect to the training that they were doing. Obviously compliance training, when you're having to train everyone within an organization, the costs there are very high, so to be able to have a training course which is tailored to individual needs is going to be very beneficial. So just looking here, a couple of points that I've made. The tailored approach is obviously the best approach for training programs. Not only are they looking then at the needs of individuals, but also at individuals within an organisation. So depending on where they work within an organisation, the training that they would be required to do can be tailored to that. And also that scenario-based training and training that has practical scenarios where the individual can apply what they're learning to roles within their organisation works very well in reinforcing what they've learned. Another trend that I just wanted to mention that is something that is evolving within the compliance training field is blended learning. And this is where, rather than just having, again, one type of training for across the whole firm, training is now more tailored towards individuals and departments within an organisation. And it combines elements of online training with classroom-based training. And it uses a diverse range of different delivery methods, so with short multiple choice based questions, but also with scenario based questions, with using gamification, where you can use games to enhance the learner's experience, and obviously there it becomes far more engaging for the learner if they're using a selection of different methods in order to learn. Again, this has been seen to be a far more effective way for individuals to learn, and gives more flexibility. One of the big things at the moment that regulators are looking at within firms is that the training that they are actually delivering is effective. So being able to show that it's a qualitative process where they are able to show that individuals have actually not just carried out the training, but have also learned something from the training. And I think one of the benefits of the filtered courses is that the learner is able to sort of learn at their own pace and learn exactly what they need to know, which then enables them to obviously get far more out of the training. And also at the end of each section on the training, they can carry out a scenario-based test, which again can be used for being able to show that the training has been done and has been actually effective. Again, here I've said about identifying training requirements for individuals, and any type of training where it's tailored to an individual's needs is obviously going to be highly beneficial. And this really does emphasize the need for firms to move from a tick box environment. I know we've polled you all on what it is you've actually had to do, but it would have been quite useful to know whether or not you found the training that you've done in the past interesting, because I know that from training that I've done and feedback that I've had before, that a lot of individuals find compliance training rather dull. They feel that it's something that they have to do, not something that they actually enjoy doing or want to do. And therefore, to make the learning experience more enjoyable for the individual and to filter out things that they don't actually need to know because they've done it a number of times before is obviously very beneficial. So how this helps for organisations in terms of compliance training is that the firms will be able to show and demonstrate that the compliance training is effective, and also to demonstrate that there is a compliance culture within an organisation. And what this means really is that, again, it's engaging learners rather than just doing a tick box exercise to show that everyone's had a go. You're actually showing that you're delivering training to individuals that they're engaged in, that they find interesting, and that they're actually learning something from. And this goes back to the point about tailoring training to the needs of the individual rather than just having to do it as a regulatory requirement. So I just wanted to have a few moments just talking to you about the filtered compliance courses. So I've written 2 compliance courses, one on anti-money laundering and one on anti-bribery and corruption. Now, in respect of the anti-money laundering course, obviously that's the one really that is a regulatory requirement, and that all firms have a requirement to train all individuals within the organisation on, and it has to be repeated on an annual basis. So in terms of that, the use of having filters are really positive and a great benefit, because obviously, depending on how experienced the learner is, they'll be able to filter out all of the parts of the syllabus that they already know and just concentrate more on the bits that maybe they're not so familiar with, and look at the sort of things like what's happened recently, the regulatory updates, the bits in the news, rather than having to repeat the whole thing all over again. But for those individuals who've never come across anti-money laundering before, the training is very in-depth and covers everything really that you would ever need to know from a UK perspective for anti-money laundering. So the courses themselves have a very comprehensive coverage of the subjects and include regulation, legislation, guidance and news. But what they also have is examples, real-life examples and practical scenarios, which enable the individuals to apply what they've learned throughout the course to scenarios. Obviously, these courses allow you to work at your own pace, which is great if you want to be able to do some of it and go back to it, and if there's things that you want to repeat, you can do that. In terms of the anti-bribery and corruption course, that again is something that most firms now are training all their staff on, and it's something again which is more across the board in terms of training. So with the anti-bribery and corruption training, having the filters on there are very important, because some individuals may work in departments where really it doesn't touch them, whereas others may be more in the front line and therefore would need far more detail about the subject. So the benefits of doing these courses would be obviously that the whole organisation could take the training, and those that need it most would do more than others. So those are just a few points about the benefits really of the filter compliance courses. In terms of making them more interesting, as we've talked about, going back to engaging the learners and engaging individuals in terms of compliance training, because obviously I know most people find it quite dry. These courses obviously benefit learners because of the way that they work. And as I've mentioned, stripping out things that you've already learned or that you don't actually need to know means that you can cover things more quickly. The use of real life examples and practical scenarios makes the training more engaging. And as I've already mentioned, the training can be tailored to the needs of the individuals. So I'm going to go back now to the filtered team, who I think might have a few questions that we are now going to be covering.
Hello everybody, I hope you can hear me again. I think that was a very interesting presentation with Chris and Emma over there. Unfortunately, it appears that they both covered enough about data to not warrant any questions at this point. I think really learning a lot from that presentation, what we can see is that people really want to move away from overly detailed syllabuses that take a long time for people to complete to more focused, accessible training that's really useful in the workplace. And I think that's exactly what Chris and Emma have demonstrated today using personalized data and compliance training. So thank you all for attending. We don't have another webinar planned just as yet, but if you go onto filtered.com, you'll be able to find our About Us page and read our blog, and you'll be able to get the latest updates about our courses, about page updates, and about future webinars. So ensure that you check any emails we might be sending you, and you read all your correspondence, and we hope to see you again soon. And, you know, keep learning and keep tuning into our webinars. So thanks very much for joining in, guys, and have a lovely week. Bye-bye.